Hello students, today we shall be taking up the poem on killing a tree. This has been taken from the NCERT book Beehive. This poem has been written by Gieve Patel. Gieve Patel is a poet, playwright and artist. He lives in Mumbai and he is a general practitioner. He was born in 1940 in Mumbai itself. Now, before we go on to the recitation and explanation of this poem, I want all the students to compare these two images. After 1 minute or so, whatever you have been able to observe, jot it down in your registers. Recitation time. It takes much time to kill a tree. Not a simple jab of the knife will do it. It has grown slowly, consuming the earth, rising out of it, feeding upon its crust, absorbing years of sunlight, air, water, and out of its leprous hide, sprouting leaves. So hack and chop, but this alone won't do it, not so much pain will do it. The bleeding bark will heal, and from close to the ground will rise curled green twigs, miniature boughs, which if unchecked will expand again to former size. No, the root is to be pulled out of the anchoring earth. It is to be roped, tied and pulled out, snapped out, or pulled out entirely, out from the earth cave, after the strength of the tree exposed, the source white and wet, the most sensitive, hidden for years inside the earth. Then the matter of scorching and choking in sun and air, browning, hardening, twisting, withering, and then it is done. Alright, so what's the rhyme scheme of this particular poem? The poem is written in free verse, so it doesn't have any rhyme scheme. The length of the lines varies and even the stanzas are not of equal length. So let us come to the explanation of stanza 1. The poet starts by saying, it takes much time to kill a tree. Not a simple jab of the knife. So jab refers to sudden rough blow. Okay. So he says that it is not an easy process. It is quite a time consuming, difficult, tedious process to kill a tree. A simple jab of the knife is not going to kill any tree. Why? Let us see why. It has grown slowly, consuming the earth. Consuming the earth means the tree draws its nourishment, its nutrition from the earth. So, and how does it consume the earth? So it draws all its nutrition from the earth through its roots. Okay, rising out of it, feeding upon its crust. So it receives this upon its crust, absorbing years of sunlight, air and water. So it receives its energy from the sunlight, air and water. Now, what is the significance of first line? The significance is that just like it takes time for a tree to fully grow, it takes a lot of time to kill it also. So in fact, it is quite a time consuming and complicated affair. So the poet has started with quite an apt sentence within his poetry. So, and out of its leprous hide, sprouting leaves. So leprous hide means discolored bark of the tree. The discolored bark of the tree is referred to as leprous hide. This is a metaphorical expression. Just like leprosy causes discoloring of the skin of the leper, the bark of the tree has an uneven texture and color after it has been injured with an axe or a knife. Okay, so let's go on to the next stanza. So in the next stanza, the poet says, so hack and chop. Hack means to cut roughly by striking heavy blows. So hack and chop, but this alone won't do it. So he again says, but this alone, the hacking and chopping is not going to kill the tree. Just as it takes time to grow fully, the killing will also take a long time. Not so much pain will do it. The bleeding bark will heal, and from close to the ground will rise curled green twigs, miniature boughs, which if unchecked will expand again to form a size. So now here he says that yes, when you are going to hack and chop the tree, yes, it will definitely be in pain. Yes, the pain it will surely receive from your axe, but the pain won't cause its death. The bleeding bark is an alliteration here. The bleeding bark, the hacking and chopping will wound the bark of the tree. Sap will ooze out like an injured organ bleeds, but eventually the wounded bark will heal again. It will rejuvenate again. Miniature boughs refers to children, small tender branches of the tree that shoot out of the stump of the tree. And if these young shoots are left, they will expand again to their former size. So how will these green twigs rise from close to the ground? According to the poet, the tree may be cut up to the base of its trunk with only a stump behind. However, on getting nourishment through the roots, the stump will sprout again, and tender branches will shoot out of it again and will make it green once again. So this is what the poet is trying to tell us here. In this particular stanza, stanza 3, the poet is describing the actual process that can kill a tree. So he says, no, the root is to be pulled out of the anchoring earth. Now, anchoring earth, what does it mean? The earth, according to the poet, holds the roots of the tree firmly and serves as a support to stay upright. And it is just like that ship, that is anchored, it is just like the ship that is anchored to keep it stable and steady. So this is the job of the earth. So that is why it is called out of the anchoring earth. It is to be roped, and then it is to be tied, then it is to be pulled out, in fact snapped out. All right, it has to be either pulled out with great force, or it has to be cut into pieces and then taken out of the depth of the cave. So that is why it says out of the earth, out from the earth cave. Okay, depth of the earth. For pulling it out, people have to tie it firmly with ropes and then apply great force to completely uproot it. And the strength of the tree exposed. So the real strength of the tree does, lies in its roots, which remains wet and white deep under the earth. So then the poet says the source, white and wet. So the source refers to the roots, the most sensitive, hidden for years inside the earth. Okay, so he says that the strength of the tree lies in its roots, which remain wet and white deep under the earth for years. However, it cannot tolerate exposure to the sunlight or to the heat. Okay, so obviously now when the roots will be taken out, then perhaps the tree is going to die. Well, the poet in this particular stanza, stanza 4, describes how an uprooted tree ultimately meets its death. So he says, then the matter of scorching and choking in sun and air, browning, hardening, twisting, withering, and then it is done. So the roots of the tree are scorched and choked when they are pulled out of the earth and they are exposed to heat and air. So after this, what happens? The root is left exposed to the sun, and then once it is exposed to the sun, it gets, it starts getting discolored, it loses that tenderness, it's hardened, and then finally it dies, and then it is done. So it here stands for the killing of the tree. Finally the tree has been killed. It is done when the roots of the tree are uprooted forcefully from the earth. So they are exposed to harsh weather, and gradually they will wither away, since their source, the source of the tree's survival, has been dried up. So here the death of the tree takes place. Well, I could spot these mainly four poetic devices in this poem: personification, and as we can say that the whole poem has been personified. The tree has been personified by the poet. Then there are a few phrases, a few words. Bleeding bark is an alliteration also, and it is personification. In fact, bleeding bark is alliteration as well as personification and metaphorical expression as well. Slowly consuming the earth, again personified. The poet has personified the tree. Strength of the tree. Okay, so all these characteristics are attributed to human beings. So the same characteristics which are attributed to something that is non-human is personification. Alliteration, you can see very clearly: bleeding bark, burr, burr sound is there. Metaphor, leprous hide, I explained this while I was explaining you the first stanza, and bleeding bark also. Now, what is an enjambment? If you have done the previous poems, for instance, last year also there were a few poems wherein you had enjambment in various poems. Anyways, what is enjambment? Enjambment, children, refers to it is generally used in verse. It is not used in prose pieces. So the continuation of a sentence without a pause beyond the end of a line, okay, or a stanza, that is enjambment. So we can see enjambment in lines 2, 3, 5 and 6 in stanza 1, and lines 4, 5, 7, 8 in stanza 2. So I hope so far so good. Let us go on to the conclusion part now. Well, according to me, this is my take. The poem sends us an important message. The poet has treated trees just like you and me. The poet has, in a very subtle way, highlighted deforestation. He writes about the process of cutting a tree and makes us realize the pain and trauma that a tree goes through. The poem is a reminder to all those who feel that cutting or killing of trees is easy. In fact, it is quite a Herculean task. Trees have immense strength and great instinct for survival. So, does the poet want us to stop this merciless killing of trees? Yes, definitely. Does he want to send a signal? Yes, indeed. The poem is a scathing criticism, and it highlights the callousness of human beings. It portrays the manner in which the man is cruel and kills trees for his own selfish motives. So the process of killing a tree has been portrayed, in a manner as if someone is murdering someone. All right. So thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Happy learning.